The night on the alien world was colder than any night he had known on Earth. The sky was wide and endless, filled with strange stars that shimmered like frozen fire. The human soldier, alone and far from his unit, walked slowly through the silent forest of black trees. He was supposed to return to camp, but something had caught his attention. It was a sound, faint but clear, drifting through the night air. At first he thought it was the wind, but no, the sound was softer, fragile, like someone crying. His heart raced. On this planet, danger could come from anywhere. The local beasts were deadly, and the enemy, the alien empire, was even deadlier. Yet this sound was not a roar, not a scream, not the cry of an animal. It was different. It was the sound of sorrow. The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon, his eyes scanning the shadows. Every instinct told him to turn back. Every rule of survival screamed at him to stay away. But curiosity was stronger. Slowly, carefully, he moved toward the sound. Each step echoed in his chest like a drumbeat. The forest opened into a clearing, and that was when he saw her. A tall figure glowing faintly under the pale starlight. She sat on a stone, her head bowed, her long silver crown shining with cold fire. Her body was covered in black armor that seemed alive, flowing like liquid shadow, and from her eyes fell tears that glowed like blue crystal drops on the ground. The soldier froze. He knew instantly who she was, the AlienQueen, ruler of the Empire, the most feared being in the galaxy. Her armies had crushed worlds, her ships had burned stars, billions trembled at her name, and here she was, alone in the night, crying like a lost soul. His breath caught in his throat. This had to be a trick, he thought. No ruler, no queen, no monster of her kind would ever show weakness. This had to be bait, a trap. Maybe assassins waited in the shadows. Maybe the moment he moved, death would fall on him. But still, he could not look away. The sound of her crying was too real, too human. It did not sound like power. It did not sound like rage. It sounded like pain, like loneliness. Something in his chest twisted against his will. He whispered to himself, "Why is she crying?" He tried to step back, but the ground betrayed him. A sharp crack rang out as he stepped on a broken branch. The queen lifted her head at once. Her glowing eyes locked onto him, piercing through the darkness. The soldier's heart nearly stopped. He had been seen, and there was no escape. For a moment, time froze. She stared at him, her tears still shining on her cheeks. Her gaze was not filled with rage, nor with the hunger of a predator. It was filled with something else, something he had never expected. It was sorrow, raw and unguarded. She looked less like a queen, less like a monster, and more like a lost child. The soldier gripped his weapon, ready to fire. Every story told him she was the enemy. Every tale said she was a monster, wearing a crown. But as the silence stretched between them, the question in his mind grew louder. Why was she crying? The queen rose slowly from the stone, her tall figure towering over him. Her presence was terrifying, but she did not attack. Instead, her voice, soft and broken, drifted across the clearing. "You should not be here, human," she said. Her tone carried no threat, only sadness. It shook him more than any weapon could. He opened his mouth, but no words came. This was not what he had expected. He thought of turning and running, but his legs felt heavy. He thought of raising his weapon, but his hands would not move. Instead, he stood there, staring at the queen who cried under the stars. The night seemed to hold its breath. The forest was silent. The stars above watched. In that moment, the human soldier realized something impossible. The queen, the most feared being in the galaxy, was not only powerful, she was lonely. And the reason for her tears was a mystery that could change everything. He swallowed hard, his voice barely more than a whisper. What could make you cry?" The queen looked at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with sorrow. And in that moment, the soldier knew. The answer would stun him more than any battle, more than any war, more than anything he had ever faced in his life. The night stretched on, and the truth waited in her silence. He did not know yet what it was, but he knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The soldier stood frozen in the clearing, his heart pounding so loudly it almost drowned the silence around him. The AlienQueen had seen him, her glowing eyes fixed on his trembling figure. He felt as if the weight of the galaxy pressed down on his chest. One wrong move, one wrong breath, and his life could end. His mind screamed at him to run, to vanish into the trees before she could raise her hand and strike him down. But another voice whispered inside him, softer, yet stronger. The Queen had not attacked. Her voice had not been filled with rage. She had spoken with sorrow, and sorrow was not the weapon of a conqueror. It was the wound of the broken. He gripped his weapon tighter, unsure if it would save him or doom him. Every story he had ever heard about her kind told him she was merciless. She had destroyed colonies, crushed fleets, left nothing but ashes. Yet here she was, alone in the night, her tears glowing like tiny stars on the stone where she sat. "Why do you not run?" the Queen asked softly. Her words echoed through the clearing, carrying both power and pain. The soldier swallowed, his throat dry. He wanted to run, but curiosity held him in place. It was madness to stand before her, but madness was stronger than fear. He stepped forward once, the sound of his boot crunching against the soil. The Queen tilted her head, her silver crown catching the starlight. Her eyes glowed brighter, but still she did not attack. The soldier whispered, his voice almost breaking, "Why are you crying?" The Queen's lips curved into something that was not a smile, not a snarl, but a shadow of both. "You would not understand, human," she said, her tone like the edge of a blade dulled by grief. "No one of your kind could understand the weight I carry." The soldier's heart thumped harder. Her words were not the roar of a ruler, but the confession of someone tired, against all logic, against every rule drilled into him as a soldier. He stepped closer again. "Try me," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "You might be surprised." The Queen studied him, her eyes burning like suns hidden behind storm clouds. For a moment, he thought she would strike him down just for daring to speak. But instead she turned her gaze away, looking at the endless night sky above them. "Your people," she said quietly. "They live such short lives, yet they live them fully. They love, they dream, they fight for one another. We have conquered stars, but we cannot conquer the emptiness inside us." Her words hung heavy in the air. The soldier felt something stir in his chest, pity, confusion, awe, all at once. He had never imagined the Queen of an empire could envy humans. He had never thought she could see them as anything more than weak creatures to be crushed. Still, suspicion burned in him. What if this was her trick? What if she lured him closer only to break him, body and soul? He could not trust her, but he also could not walk away. Curiosity pulled him closer like a chain he could not break. "Why tell me this?" he asked carefully. "You could destroy me in an instant." The Queen turned her gaze back to him, and for a heartbeat he saw something almost human in her glowing eyes. "Because," she whispered, "you are the first to ask why I cry. My people would never dare. To them I am not. A soul, I am a weapon, a god, a crown, but to you, I am only a voice in the night." The soldier's hands trembled. He lowered his weapon slightly, though not fully. He felt as though he stood on the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. One more step could mean falling into death, or into something greater. The forest around them seemed to fade. The night air felt heavier, charged with something strange. It was fear, yes, but it was also something else. A dangerous connection, fragile yet real, forming between human and alien. "I don't know what you are planning," he said, his words steady though his chest shook. "But I don't believe you're lying. Not tonight." The Queen's eyes softened, the tears on her cheeks shimmering like jewels. "You are bold for one so small," she murmured. "Perhaps too bold." For the first time, a faint sound escaped her lips, something close to a laugh. But drowned in sorrow, it chilled him and comforted him all at once. The most feared ruler in the galaxy had laughed, not at his weakness, but at his courage. Yet the soldier knew this was dangerous. He could not let trust blind him. Every instinct still told him to beware, but his heart whispered that he was standing at the edge of a story bigger than war, bigger than fear, and curiosity would not let him walk away. The night stretched on, and in that silence the human and the queen faced one another, enemies by blood, strangers by fate. But perhaps in this strange and fragile moment, something new was beginning. The night pressed heavy around them, the soldier standing still while the alien queen's glowing eyes followed his every breath. He had asked the question no one dared, and now silence stretched between them like a wall. The queen's tears still shone on her face, but her expression had changed. It was no longer only sadness, it was decision. She was weighing something, as if deciding whether to destroy him or to trust him with a truth no human should ever hear. At last she spoke, her voice low and steady. "You want to know why I cry," she said. "Then you must know who I am beyond the crown." The soldier's heart pounded harder. He had studied her empire for years. He knew her titles, her victories, her cruelty in battle. But now, standing before her, he realized he knew nothing of the soul behind those glowing eyes. "I am a queen, yes," she said, her words like a storm held behind glass. "My people worship me as more than a ruler. They see me as eternal, perfect, unbreakable." Her gaze turned upward to the stars, her voice trembling with something close to rage. "But I am none of those things. I am a prisoner of my throne." The soldier frowned, his grip tightening on his weapon, though he no longer pointed it at her. "A prisoner?" he asked, his voice shaking. "How can someone who rules the galaxy be a prisoner?" The queen looked back at him, and for the first time he saw not only power, but raw pain in her face. "Because no one dares to touch me. No one dares to speak to me as a living being. To them I am a god, and gods cannot bleed, gods cannot love, gods cannot cry." Her words pierced him like a blade. He had expected threats, not confessions. He had expected death, not sorrow. But here she was, confessing loneliness deeper than any prison cell. "I have stood on the ashes of worlds," she continued, her voice shaking now. "I have heard billions cry out in fear of my name, but never once have I heard a voice that spoke to me as me." Her hand lifted to her crown, the silver edges glowing faintly. "This crown is not a gift, it is a chain. It binds me to a life without warmth." The soldier felt his chest tighten. He had lost comrades in war. He had seen suffering, but even at their worst, humans had one another. Friends, family, brothers in arms. Even in despair, there was always a hand to hold, a voice to comfort. But this queen, feared by all, had none of that. "Do you know what it is like to be alone, while surrounded by millions?" she asked, her eyes narrowing as if daring him to answer. The soldier could not reply. He thought of his unit back at camp, laughing, arguing, living. Even in war, they had moments of life, moments of joy. The queen had none, and suddenly her tears made sense. "You cry because you are alone," he whispered, the words leaving his lips before he could stop them. The queen flinched as if his simple sentence struck harder than any weapon. "Yes," she said softly. "Alone, and cursed to remain so." The soldier stared at her, unsure what to feel. This was the enemy, the one his people called monster. And yet, in this moment, she was more human than anyone he had met. Her secret was not weakness of body, but weakness of heart. And that secret was more dangerous than any weapon. "Why tell me this?" he asked finally, his voice a mix of fear and wonder. "You could have killed me. You could still kill me now." The queen's lips curved into something faint, almost like a bitter smile. "Because you asked," she said simply. "No one has ever asked, not once, not in all my reign. You saw my tears, and instead of fleeing, you dared to question them." Her eyes locked onto his, and he felt the weight of her soul pressing into him. "You may not realize it, human, but that makes you different. Perhaps that makes you dangerous." The soldier's stomach turned, his mind spinning. Dangerous, she had called him. Yet she did not strike. Instead, she seemed to study him as if he were the mystery, not her. The forest was silent, only their voices breaking the stillness, and for the first time since the war began, The soldier realized something shocking. The most feared being in the galaxy had trusted him with a secret she had never shared with anyone. A secret that could shatter her empire if it were known. A secret that revealed she was not a god, not a monster, but a lonely soul, chained to her crown. The soldier felt the air grow heavier. He knew this moment was dangerous. If he lived to tell anyone what he had learned, the galaxy itself might shift. But still, curiosity burned stronger than fear. "What do you want from me?" he asked at last. The queen did not answer, not yet. Her eyes shimmered with fresh tears as she whispered only, "What I want is the one thing I cannot have." Her voice broke on the words, and silence fell again. The soldier stood there, heart racing, knowing he had stepped into something far greater than himself. He had uncovered the queen's secret, and the reason for her tears was more haunting than he could have imagined. The clearing was silent, only the faint sound of the queen's breathing mixing with the distant hum of alien insects. The soldier stood stiff, his weapon still in his hands though lowered now. He had heard her secret, words that no human should ever hear, and yet he could not shake the thought that it was all a lie. She was the queen after all, the ruler of a merciless empire. She could twist truth as easily as she commanded armies. Her tears could be nothing but bait, her sorrow nothing but theater. Perhaps every word was designed to disarm him, to lower his guard until the final strike. His heart warned him, "Do not trust her." But another voice whispered back, "She has not killed you, not yet." And in that fact lay a mystery more dangerous than any ambush. "You say you are alone," the soldier said slowly, his voice tight. "You say you are a prisoner of your own crown. But how do I know this is not another trap? How do I know you will not use my pity to destroy me?" The queen turned her glowing eyes on him, and for a moment he felt smaller than a grain of dust before a star. She could have crushed him with a word, yet she only stared. "Your kind believes every secret is a weapon," she said softly. "And perhaps you are right. But tell me, human, why would I choose you of all creatures to hear my weakness?" The soldier had no answer. His chest tightened as he realized the danger in her words. If she had wanted him dead, she could have ended him long before now. If she had wanted silence, she could have erased him from the world without leaving a trace. And yet here they stood, speaking as if they were equals. But still, suspicion gnawed at him. "Maybe you want to plant seeds in my mind," he said. "Maybe you want me to go back to my people and carry your lies. Maybe you want us to hesitate, to doubt, to weaken." For the first time, the queen's expression hardened. Her glowing eyes narrowed and her voice turned sharp. "If I wanted to weaken your kind, I would not waste words. I would burn your fleets. I would turn your cities into ash. I do not need lies to conquer you." Her words struck like thunder, and for a moment fear returned to him. Yet when her voice softened again, it struck even harder. "I speak to you because you asked, because you looked at me and saw not only a crown, but tears." The soldier's hands trembled, his weapon heavy in his grip. He did not lower it fully, but he felt the strength to keep it raised slipping. Her words were too real, too raw. If this was a trap, it was unlike any trap he had ever known. The queen tilted her head slightly, studying him with something almost like curiosity. "You do not trust me," she said, "and that is wise, but tell me, human, do you trust your own heart?" The question struck deeper than he expected. Did he trust himself? He was the one who had stepped closer when he should have run. He was the one who had spoken to her instead of staying silent. He was the one who now listened to her words even as fear clawed at his chest. Maybe it was not her he distrusted, but himself. Maybe he feared what would happen if he let his guard fall completely, because some part of him, against all reason, wanted to believe her. "You are dangerous," he said at last, his voice shaking. "You are my enemy. But you do not sound like an enemy tonight." The queen's lips curved slightly, not into a smile, but into something sadder. "Perhaps tonight I am not your enemy," she whispered. "Perhaps tonight I am only what I truly am, a lonely soul beneath a crown of iron." The soldier's chest tightened. Her words carved through the wall of suspicion in his mind, leaving cracks. Not enough for trust to flow freely, but enough for doubt to grow. Doubt that she was only a monster. Doubt that she was only a weapon. The forest around them seemed to lean in closer, listening to every word. The stars above shone, brighter, as if they too wanted to hear the truth. And the soldier realized that this night was no longer about war, no longer about survival. It was about something far more dangerous, connection. "Then what do you want from me?" he asked, his voice low. The queen's eyes glimmered, her answer a whisper that carried more weight than thunder. "I want to remember what it feels like to be seen." The words lingered in the air, heavier than any threat. The soldier's suspicion did not vanish, but it shifted. He still feared her, still doubted her. But something inside him now ached to understand her, and that ache was the beginning of something neither of them could yet name. The night stretched on, and two enemies stood together, bound not by war, but by fragile words. Suspicion and trust battled inside the soldier's heart, and in the silence of the clearing, he knew this was only the beginning of a choice that would change everything. The soldier stood in silence, his weapon heavy in his hands. The queen's words still echoed in his mind. "I want to remember what it feels like to be seen." No enemy had ever spoken to him like that. No ruler, no conqueror. It shook him more than the roar of any battlefield, yet the question still burned inside him. Why was she crying? What sorrow could break the strongest being in the galaxy? He needed the truth, though part of him feared what that truth might be. "Tell me," he said carefully, his voice low. "Why do you cry alone in the night? What pain could bring a queen of your power to tears?" The queen lifted her gaze to the sky, her eyes glowing faintly beneath the crown of silver. The stars reflected in her tears, and for a long moment she said nothing. The soldier thought she might stay silent forever, but at last her voice broke the stillness, soft and heavy with despair. "There is a prophecy," she whispered, "a shadow over my people, a fate we cannot escape. It says that our empire will not fall to weapons, not to fleets, not to fire. It will fall to emptiness." The soldier frowned, his chest tightening. "Emptiness," he repeated, not understanding. The queen nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "Yes, emptiness of the heart. We have conquered worlds, but we have forgotten how to feel. We cannot love. We cannot laugh. We cannot share life as humans do. We are strong in body, strong in mind, but hollow inside. And what is hollow, human, will always break." Her words struck deep into him. He had expected stories of betrayal, of war, of some secret weapon. But this was worse. Her empire was dying not from enemies, but from within. Dying because they had no warmth, no soul, only power. "Have ruled for centuries," she continued, her voice breaking now. "I have sat on a throne of iron while millions bowed before me. They call me eternal, unshaken, divine. But what good is eternity if it is only an endless silence? Every day, I feel my people slipping further into that void, and I am powerless to stop it." The soldier felt his throat tighten. Her sorrow was real, too real to be faked. This was not the mask of a ruler, this was the cry of someone drowning in her own crown. "Why tell me this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You could hide this truth forever. Your people would never dare question you. Why reveal it to me, your enemy?" The queen's eyes locked onto his, and he felt her soul burn through the darkness. "Because you are human," she said simply. "Because your kind has what we do not. You live such short lives, but you fill them with fire. You love, you lose, you laugh, you fight. You carry meaning even in pain. That is why we fear you. That is why I envy you." Her confession stunned him. The most feared ruler in the galaxy envied humanity. Not their weapons, not their ships, but their hearts. The soldier's chest tightened, his mind racing. Could this truly be the weakness of an empire? Could something so simple be the reason she cried? The queen lowered her head, her voice almost breaking. "I cry because I can see the end of my people, not from war, not from enemies, but from emptiness. We will fade into silence, a shadow that leaves nothing behind. And I do not want to fade. I do not want to vanish without ever knowing what it means to live." Her words cut into him like a blade. He thought of Earth, of his comrades, of laughter around campfires, of songs and stories. Even in war, humans found ways to live. Even in darkness, they created light. The Queen's people had stars but no warmth, power but no soul. And that was why she cried. For the first time, the soldier lowered his weapon completely. He no longer saw a monster, no longer saw a queen of shadows. He saw a soul in chains, a ruler powerful enough to conquer galaxies but powerless to conquer her own loneliness. The silence stretched heavy between them. The soldier wanted to speak, but his words failed. What could he say to someone whose sorrow spanned centuries? What comfort could a mortal offer a queen bound by eternity? Yet something stirred inside him, something simple but strong. "You're wrong about one thing," he whispered. The Queen tilted her head, her glowing eyes sharp. "Wrong," she repeated, her voice dangerous but curious. "Yes," the soldier said firmly, his voice steadier now. "You say you cannot live. You say you cannot feel. But you are crying. And tears. Tears mean you are still alive inside." The Queen froze, her expression unreadable. For a long moment she stared at him, her tears shimmering in the pale light. Then her lips parted, and a sound escaped. A sound fragile, broken, almost like a laugh. "You dare speak to me so boldly," she whispered. "No one in the galaxy has ever dared say such words to me." The soldier swallowed hard, his heart pounding, yet he did not look away. He had found the reason behind her tears, and the truth stunned him more than any battle. The AlienQueen, feared by all, was afraid not of death, but of emptiness, afraid of fading into silence without ever knowing the warmth humans carried so easily. The clearing was quiet once more, but the air was heavy with something new. A fragile bond, dangerous but real, had begun to form, and the soldier knew deep inside that nothing would ever be the same again. The night was silent, but inside the soldier's heart, a storm was raging. He had heard the Queen's secret, the truth she carried like a curse. She feared not war, not death, but emptiness. Her empire was hollow, and she longed for what only humans seemed to have. The weight of her confession pressed on him like the sky itself. And now he knew he had to make a choice. His weapon hung useless at his side. For the first time in his life, he did not know if it was protection or burden. He could kill her, he thought. If he struck now, the war might end, his people might be free. The galaxy would call him a hero. But as he looked at her, this mighty queen with tears on her cheeks, he wondered if killing her would only make him a murderer of something more fragile than a crown. The Queen's glowing eyes never left him. She seemed to sense his struggle, her voice soft as the wind. "You are torn, human. Your kind always chooses, always wrestles with the weight of right and wrong. It is what makes you strong, and what makes you dangerous." The soldier swallowed hard, his throat dry. He thought of his unit back at camp, of his commanders of the war. If he returned with this secret, if he told them the Queen's weakness, they would use it, they would twist it into strategy, into victory, into conquest. But a part of him recoiled at the thought. To turn her, pain into a weapon, felt colder than any alien act. "You could run," she said softly. "You could vanish into the forest. Forget this night. Pretend you never saw me cry. But even if you flee, the truth will follow you. You cannot unhear what I have told you. You cannot unknow the emptiness of my people." Her words echoed deep in him. She was right. He could never erase this memory. The image of the Queen crying under the stars would live in him forever. And, with it, the question of what he chose to do now. He lifted his head, forcing strength into his voice. "If you want your people to survive," he said slowly, "then they must learn what it means to be human." The Queen's eyes widened, glowing brighter as if fire flickered inside them. For a moment she looked almost stunned. No one has ever spoken such words to me, she whispered. Not my council, not my generals, not even those who worship me as a god. Only you, a soldier from a world we sought to conquer, dare to say such things. The soldier took a step closer, though his chest shook with fear. You conquer stars, but we conquer life. We may be weak in body, short in years, but we live, we love, we fight for each other. We laugh even in the shadow of death. That is what makes us human. That is why we endure. The queen studied him, her gaze sharp, yet filled with something new. It was not sorrow this time, not despair. It was hope. Faint, but real. Flickering like a fragile flame in the darkness. Could you teach us? She asked, her voice trembling for the first time. Could you show us what it means to live? Or is such a gift only for your kind? The soldier's chest tightened. The thought was impossible. How could he teach an empire what it meant to be human? How could one man change the fate of an entire species? And yet, as he looked into her glowing eyes, he felt the weight of her question. It was not only about her people. It was about her, a queen who wanted, for once in her endless reign, to feel alive. He hesitated, torn between fear and compassion. If he said yes, he risked everything. His life, his people, the balance of the war. If he said no, he condemned her to loneliness and her empire to emptiness. The choice burned in him. Like fire, you ask for something no one has ever asked of me, he said, his voice low. You ask me to give what makes us human, but maybe that is why I was here tonight. The queen's lips parted, her eyes shimmering with something almost like wonder. You believe this meeting was fate? She whispered. I don't know what I believe, the soldier admitted. But I know this. If your people are to survive, it won't be through war. It will be through learning how to feel. And if you truly want that, maybe I can help. The words left his lips before he could stop them. The moment they hung in the air, he realized what he had said. He had chosen, not the path of betrayal, not the path of silence, but the path of trust, fragile and dangerous. The queen stepped closer, her tall figure casting a long shadow in the starlight. She looked into his eyes, her glowing gaze softening. Perhaps you are the key, she said quietly. Perhaps it begins not with my people, but with me. The soldier's heart pounded as the realization struck him. He had chosen not only to hear her secret, but to carry it, and now he was bound to her, bound by a choice that could change the galaxy. The night grew colder, yet in that clearing something warmer stirred. Not trust, not yet, but the fragile beginning of it, a human and a queen, enemies by war, now bound by a choice that neither could escape. And the soldier knew, deep inside, that this was only the beginning. The hardest choices were still to come. The clearing felt heavier now, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to watch. The soldier's words still echoed in the cold air. If your people are to survive, they must learn what it means to be human. He had not planned to say it, yet the moment it left his lips, the world itself seemed to change. The queen stood tall before him, her silver crown shimmering faintly, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Her tears had slowed, but their trace still marked her face, glimmering like frozen light. For the first time in centuries, she did not look like a ruler of iron. She looked like someone fragile, searching, holding on to a hope she had never dared to speak aloud. Perhaps you are the key, she whispered, her voice soft but steady. The soldier stiffened, his heart pounding. The key to what? He asked cautiously, though a part of him already feared the answer. The key to saving us, she said. Her words fell into the silence like thunder. You, human, with your fire, your heart, your fleeting but fierce life, perhaps you are what my people need to survive. The soldier's breath caught. It was madness. Impossible. He was no leader, no prophet, no savior. He was only a soldier, lost in the night, carrying a weapon and a weary soul. And yet, the Queen looked at him as though he carried the weight of destiny. "You cannot mean that," he said quickly, shaking his head. "I'm just one man, one human among billions. What could I possibly give to your people?" The Queen stepped closer, her presence towering but not crushing. Her voice was calm, yet there was an edge of desperation in it. "You listened," she said. "You did what none of my own people could do. You saw me, not as a god, not as a monster, but as a soul. That alone makes you different. That alone makes you dangerous." The soldier's chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to deny her words, but deep inside, he knew she was right. He had seen her tears and stayed, when every instinct told him to run. And now that choice had bound him to something far greater than himself. Still, fear gnawed at him. If he accepted this, what would it mean? Would he become a traitor to his own kind? Would he become a tool for hers? Or could he truly become the bridge between two worlds? The Queen's eyes softened as if she sensed his fear. "You do not have to decide tonight," she said gently. "But know this, human. Fate has already begun. Your choice has already shaped what comes next." The soldier swallowed hard, his throat tight. He wanted to deny it, to call it a dream, a trick, a lie. But nothing in her voice sounded false. And in her glowing eyes he saw something that chilled him more than any weapon. Hope, fragile but real. Hope placed in him. The silence of the forest grew deeper, the air colder. The soldier felt the weight of the night pressing down on him. He was one man, yet the Queen had spoken as if he carried the fate of empires, as if his humanity itself was a weapon, or a cure. At last he broke the silence. "If I am the key, what happens if I fail?" he asked, his voice low. The Queen's eyes shimmered with fresh tears. "Then we vanish," she said simply. "We fade into the void, forgotten. And your kind will stand alone in the galaxy, perhaps stronger, perhaps safer, but forever wondering what could have been." The soldier's heart sank at her words. He imagined an empty galaxy, filled with silence where once there had been voices. He imagined humans surviving, but surviving alone. It was a future colder than any war. The Queen lowered her head, her voice breaking. "I do not ask you to save us. I only ask you to try, to show me, even for a moment, what it means to live." Her words stunned him more than any battle. She was not demanding, not commanding. She was pleading. The Queen of the Galaxy was pleading with a single soldier beneath the stars. The soldier's hands shook as he looked at her. He thought of Earth, of his comrades, of laughter and sorrow, of love and loss, all the things that made them human. And for the first time he understood why she envied them. For the first time he understood why she cried. The night stretched on, heavy with choice. The soldier did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know if he could carry the weight she placed on him. But as he looked at her, this lonely Queen with eyes full of sorrow and hope, he knew one thing. This moment would follow him forever. He had come into the forest as a soldier, but he would leave as something more, a bearer of a secret, a carrier of hope, a bridge between two worlds. And though the future was dark and uncertain, the Queen's final words echoed in his mind like fire. "Perhaps only you can save us." The soldier froze, breath caught in his chest. The most powerful being in the galaxy had placed her fate, and the fate of her people, in his hands, and in that moment he realized, this was not the end, this was only the beginning.